Man, we're going everywhere tonight. Just trust me, I'll try not to chase any rabbits um, tonight. Okay. Years ago when I worked.
I gotta go. My lady that I work for next door just fell.
Oh,
Her daughter can't get her up off the floor in the bathroom.
okay.
Somebody else to do it for her. What's her name, Joey? It's Luana Stevenson. Okay. Shirley. Okay. Thank you. You need help? No, I got it. I wash it every day. I just left work too, not an hour ago.
Um, why don't we do that right now? Somebody want to pray for Luana real quick? Says she fell. We don't know what the issue is yet, but let's just do that real quick. Thank you.
Father God, we just lift up Luana Stevenson to you right now, Father. You know the circumstance, you know those people that are surrounding her right now. Lord, we just ask that your healing hand be upon her, that no bones are broken, that it's just a little slip, and Joanne's going to get over there, and Luana will be lifted up, and everything will be okay. Father, I ask you to be with the people that are around her who are concerned about her. And Father, just give them peace. We thank you, Lord, that already you have resolved this problem. We know that we can trust you, and we just give you the praise. In Christ's name.
Amen. Years ago, when I worked for the park department in our city, there was one winter when we were coming up to the end of the year, and the powers in charge realized that we had too much gasoline left throughout the whole park department, and for that time of the year. And if that gas wasn't used, they reasoned that we wouldn't be able to get that much of an allotment for gas for the next year. That's how government works. You know, that's how they think.
Government for
It is. So for a week, every person was given a vehicle and told just to drive around the city. We didn't do any, totally serious, we didn't do any other work. We just drove around the city to use up this gas before the end of the year. And they said, when your truck starts getting low, come back to the shop, we'll fill it up again, and you'll go out again. So for a week, there was a whole department that drove around. All they did was drive around the city. We just drove all over the place to use up the gas. Well, a couple of us decided that we were going to meet for lunch. And I got there a little bit early, and soon after, another worker showed up. And he said that his truck just didn't feel right. It wasn't running that well. He said it seemed sluggish when I tried to go, and then when I tried to stop, the brakes really didn't want to work that well. And he didn't know what to do. So I said, well, let's go out and look. So we went out to his truck, and I opened the door. I smelled something a little hot. And when I opened the door, I looked down, and I said, you know, the truck runs a lot better if you take the parking brake off. He had been driving around all morning with the parking brake on the truck. Well, I told him that being the friend that I was probably never going to let him live this down. Okay? But I told him that it was just going to be between he and I, and if he were smart, he wouldn't share this with anybody else. We have these little things in life that operate much the same way. They function like a parking brake. They impede our progress, and they keep us from moving forward the way that we should. They don't always shut us down completely, but they drag us down and slow us down and keep us from knowing the freedom of walking closely with Jesus. I would imagine many of us have experience with this kind of a thing. Sometimes it's because of sin, which we try to minimize. But what we really need to do is to get rid of it altogether. And then many times it's just because of clutter, needless distractions, and and misplaced priorities that we have. This includes things that might otherwise be considered good, but have grown too big in our lives. And they're keeping us from doing those things which are best for us. We're in a series right now here on Wednesday nights dealing with getting closer to God. And tonight we're going to look at how to release the parking brake, if you will. How to get rid of those things that stand in the way of having a closer walk with Jesus. And to do this, we're going to look at Hebrews 12, verses 1 and 2. Hebrews 12, verses 1 and 2. I want to read a portion of this passage out of the Contemporary English Version. Now, I usually read out of the Holman, but I like the way it's worded here in the Contemporary English Version. This is Hebrews 1 or Hebrews 12, 1a and 2a. It says, so we must get rid of everything that slows us down, especially the sin that just won't let go. And we must be determined to run the race that is ahead of us. We must keep our eyes on Jesus, who leads us and makes our faith complete. Now here's the good news. You can be close to God. And you can know that you're close to God. And even though we don't live by our feelings, we can discover that it's a good feeling to know that we're walking with Jesus and that he's walking with us and that he's all that matters in our life. Tonight we're going to look at one key aspect of our journey into a closer walk with him, and that is clearing out the clutter. Because when you clear out the clutter, when you release those things which are holding you back, you can freely run the race that God has prepared for you to run. Hebrews 12 shows us how to do that. There are 3 steps that I want us to look at tonight. Here's the first one. To run the race set before you, you need to identify that which slows you down. In the Holman, the writer begins by talking about the sin that so easily ensnares us. Other versions use the word entangles us. And the word used here literally means to be surrounded or to be encircled on all sides. The image is of something wrapping itself around you and getting in your way. And let's face it, sin can certainly do that. It can close in on you until life feels unimaginable. Now, I've mentioned before that I'm a flashlight guy. My view is that you can never have too many flashlights. It's just something in the way I'm wired. I just don't believe you can ever have too many flashlights. There's something in my brain that makes me always want to stop and admire flashlights when I go to a store. And honestly, with me, you can never go wrong with the gift of a flashlight. That's just the way I am. Unfortunately, I have this same glitch in my personality about extension cords. No, I don't drool over them at the store. But if I see a great deal on an extension cord, I'm very, very tempted to buy it. If I see a new design on an extension cord, I was watching some videos the other day, and there was this extension cord that you could plug in, and it had like a tube kind of a thing that you could, it would go straight up your wall and put the plug like behind your, if you had a plug behind your couch, it would just go straight up and so that you could use it even if it was behind your couch, and this thing would go whatever direction you wanted, and was adjustable. It was just, it was cool. See, some of y'all are going, ooh, that sounds nice. Okay, those kind of things. It's just I don't know what it is, but I get tempted to want to purchase those. The problem here is that I have a lot of extension cords. And when you store a lot of extension cords, when you're needing one in a hurry, you find out that somewhere out there, there's a tangle and knot gnome who messes with your extension cords. There have been times when I went out to get one, and it was so tangled and knotted up with 3 other cords that it was virtually impossible to get them apart. Never in my life, if I had actually tried to tangle and knot up some of the extension cords, could I have come up with some of the knots that I come across in my tub of extension cords. I put them in there, and then when I go to get them, they're just all knotted up. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. But that's the role that sin plays in your life. It tangles things. It complicates things. It makes your life a mess, more or less. So notice what the writer says that we should do. We need to throw it off. We need to toss it aside. Don't tolerate it. Don't make excuses for it. Don't resign yourself to living with it. Just get rid of it. And it's not just sin. The writer also talks about everything that slows us down or hinders us. And the word used here refers to anything heavy or bulky. It was used in the ancient world to describe body mass or excess baggage. It can refer to things that aren't necessarily bad in and of themselves, but now they weigh you down. They keep you from running the race freely. There have been times when I claimed to be too busy to keep up with my devotional life. Now, I love my job. But when I prioritize my job over those things which should come first, which is my relationship with God, which would be my devotional life, then a good thing becomes a hindrance. The same is true of many areas of life, whether it's relationships or hobbies, projects, and even ministry itself. Any good thing can become a heavy thing if it stands in the way of your walk with Jesus. That's why we need to evaluate our priorities and how we spend our time. Sometimes it means less TV. Sometimes it means putting down your phone. Sometimes it means learning to say no to good things so you can say yes to the best things. In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus visited the home of 2 sisters and their brother Lazarus. While Jesus was in the courtyard of their home, preaching and teaching to a group of people, Martha was busy with preparations, getting everything in place because she had a house full of guests, and there was, naturally, a lot of stuff to do to meet their needs. Her sister Mary, on the other hand, spent this time at the feet of Jesus, listening to everything he had to say. And Martha was frustrated, and she complained about it. But look at Luke 10, verses 41 and 42. This is what Jesus said. The Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has made the right choice, and it will not be taken away from her. And that's the difference between clutter and clarity. Martha's distractions weren't sinful. They were good things. But they kept her from what was truly needed. Now, clearly, you can't just let everything go while you listen to sermons all day. The floor still needs to be swept. The yard still needs to be mowed. But these aren't really the worst of our distractions, are they? The question we need to ask ourselves throughout the day is, does this deserve the priority that I've given it? Where does it belong on the list? And can it be eliminated altogether? When we're not particular about this, it's incredible how quickly our lives can fill up with just busy stuff. So we need to identify those things that are holding us back. And here's the second step. Toss aside that which needs to be tossed aside, and then I've added, and rearrange that which needs to be rearranged. It's one thing to identify the clutter in your life, and I would imagine we could all be pretty good at that and identifying the clutter that we have. I know I am. But actually doing something about it is something totally different. Hebrews says we must get rid of everything that slows us down. The phrase or word that's translated here as get rid of was used to refer to a garment. It could mean to set something aside, and it could also mean to get rid of something altogether. Just throw the thing away. When I was in junior high school, I had a friend who was on the track team. He'd walk around everywhere with ankle weights on. Y'all remember those? The idea being that it would help him build up the muscles in his legs some, as well as help him run faster once he took them off. Now, you know how you can get used to seeing something and you don't even notice it anymore. That's the way it was with him. It got to where nobody really even noticed that he had these ankle weights on anymore. They were just a part of who he was. Unfortunately, for him, it became that way as well. Now, one track meet, he got up to the line and in position to run. And a track member from another school looked over at him and said, "You're actually running the meet with weights on?" And that's when he realized that he was so used to wearing them that he hadn't taken them off to run the race. And now it was too late for him to do anything about it because they were at the starting line. He was on the blocks. And before you ask, no, he didn't win the race. This is what the writer of Hebrews is saying. You can't run the race burdened with extra weight. So take it off. Toss it aside. Don't carry it with you if you don't have to. Having a closer walk with Jesus means that sometimes we make the necessary decision to say, these things will no longer be a part of my day. I'm going to set them aside. Over the years, I've heard people make different kinds of decisions in that direction by saying things like, I don't look at my phone for the first hour of the day. I don't sleep with the TV on. I avoid certain topics of conversation and even certain people who tend to pull me into gossip. Those kind of things. These are all intentional decisions to cast aside those things which hinder us in order to make space for what matters most. In Timothy, Paul uses a different image, but it's the very same principle. In 2 Timothy 2, verses 20 and 21, it says, in a large house, some dishes are made of gold or silver, while others are made of wood or clay. Some of these are special, and others are not. This is also how it is with people. The ones who stop doing evil and make themselves pure will become special. Their lives will be holy and pleasing to their master. and they will be able to do all kinds of good deeds. So if you want to be useful to God, you need to clear out what doesn't belong, that which is not special, and allow yourself to be a vessel ready to be used by God in whatever way He chooses, which is generally the greater good. Being closer to Jesus becomes this constant filtering process where we say one of two things. We either say, here lately, this thing has taken too much of my attention. And though it may not be that bad, right now it's slowing me down. So it's time that I scale back. It's time to set this aside. Or we say, enough is enough. I've let myself get tangled up in this sinful attitude or this sinful habit, and it's time for me to get serious about what matters most. I'm not merely setting this sin aside for a while. I'm going to toss it out altogether. I'm going to let it go. And it's never really easy to turn your back on sin because it keeps tapping you on the shoulder and calling out your name. But let's remember the promise that we heard last week in the book of James. In James 4:7, he said, resist the devil and he will flee from you. So resist. Get rid of everything that slows us down, especially the sin that won't go away. And this becomes a lot easier when you take this third step, which is turn your eyes upon Jesus. Hebrews tells us in Hebrews 10, and we must be determined to run the race that is ahead of us. We must keep our eyes on Jesus, who leads us and makes our faith complete. Other translations say the author and finisher of our faith. The NIV says the pioneer and perfecter of faith. And I kind of like that version. The first word pioneer means trailblazer. Jesus is the one who leads the way. Your Christian life doesn't start with you. It starts with Him because He's been there before you were. And the second word, perfecter, means the one who brings completion. What Jesus begins in you, He also finishes in you. And Paul said that exact thing in Philippians 1:6. He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. The writer of Hebrews is saying, in effect, your Christian life starts with Jesus and it ends with Jesus. So make everything in your life about Jesus. Keep your eyes on Him. I'm sure you all remember the story of Peter when he stepped out of the boat to start walking towards Jesus. At first, he's doing the impossible. And as long as his eyes are fixed on Jesus, he's able to walk on the surface of the sea. But then he notices the wind, and he notices the waves, and everything else going on around him. And the moment his focus shifts, he begins to sink. And the message there is pretty clear for us. If you want to walk in victory, keep your eyes on Jesus. So what does that mean? How do you do that? It means you keep Him, you keep Jesus front and center all throughout the day. Many times, even when we think about the Christian life, we think about everything but Jesus. We think about ourselves. Do I have enough joy? Are my prayers being answered? We think about this preacher and this book or this song that we like. Or we think about any number of religious related topics And there's nothing wrong with those, again, in and of themselves. But it's not the same as thinking about Jesus. Jesus is your friend. He's the one who walks with you and talks with you. Keep your eyes on him. We weren't created to live a weighed down life. We were created to run free, to live victoriously, unhindered and disentangled. The clutter that we tolerate is like the parking brake that we've left on. It keeps us from experiencing the closeness with God that he desires for all of us. And unfortunately, it's self-imposed. We do it to ourselves. Hebrews 12 calls us to a better way. Look at what it is that's slowing you down and get it out of the way. Turn your eyes upon Jesus all throughout the day. Because when you do, you're going to discover that you're nearer to God and he is nearer to you than you've ever experienced before.